the introduction. And I also want to thank the organizers to, make it possible to connect me via Skype. And I'm going now to slide number 2, which is, the usual slide that everybody has to present, the forward-looking statements. And then I would like to start on slide number 3, which is the company snapshot. So Affitech has currently 2 promising lead drug candidates. One is AT001, which is a human selective anti-VEGF antibody with a new mode of action. And I will explain later some more details. The second program in lead is a program called AT008, which is targeting chemokine receptor 4. And this is actually Affitech's first CBAS antibody. CBAS is our proprietary screening technology, which I also will explain to you a little bit more in detail later. And this is an antibody targeting a G protein coupled receptor, which is a very important target class. And there we are advancing to candidate selection. Besides those 2 lead programs, we have a broad and growing pipeline of G protein coupled receptor drug candidates, and also there I will provide you with some more details later. All the programs that we have running at the moment are generated by our own proprietary fully integrated technology platform, and I will also later in the presentation tell you a little bit more about our strategic partnerships that we have established for research, co-development, as well as marketing. So then I would, from there, like to go to slide 4. So obviously, this is an important slide, but I don't want to spend too much time here. So we have a solid intellectual property platform, basically protecting broadly our technology. These are the 3 first bullets. So the brightening patent, there we have worldwide exclusive rights, which is covering certain aspects of phage display technology, which we acquired from the German Cancer Research Center. And then our centerpiece in the discovery is a technology called cell-based antibody selection. And there we have now granted patents in Europe, in Russia, Japan, New Zealand, South Africa, Singapore, and pending in all the other countries which are listed there. Besides the technology platform, of course, we have also protected our product candidates. So AT001, there we have patents pending in all countries of the world, and there will be some news released soon. And then in our GPCR focus, so our program against targeting CCR4 and CXCR4, there the applications are filed, and they're either pre-PCT or early PCT phase in the UK and the USA. So basically everything is broadly covered. I would like to come then to slide 5, where I have listed our current portfolio. So the first 2 programs I mentioned initially, so the candidate is AT001. The disease area that we are there targeting is cancer, and we have partnered that program with IBC Generium in Russia. The status is that we are currently filing the CTA, and the phase 1 trial is scheduled actually for this year. The second program is AT008, targeting CCR4, as I also mentioned in my introduction. Here we explore cancer and autoimmune diseases. And also this program we have partnered with IBC Generium, as you might know. And there we are now in broad preclinical testing, and we have selected a development candidate. Besides those 2 lead programs, we have 2 programs. This is AT004 and AT005, which we are running in partnership with Peregrine Pharmaceuticals. The disease areas here, cancer and infectious diseases, and the status is not disclosed. Then with AT06, we have a very interesting program together with Roche. There we target a factor called angiopoietin 2. And this program is in development, and later also we'll mention some more details regarding this program. And then besides those programs, we have our focus on GPCR. So the one that we have disclosed is a program targeting CXCR4. The program is AT009. And then several other GPCR programs that we have not disclosed yet. Then I come to slide 6. So I mentioned initially that we have a fully integrated antibody discovery platform, and it consists mainly out of 4 building blocks. The most central one here in a schematic drawing in green is our human antibody library, containing more than 10 billion different molecules, which we then combine with 2 screening platforms. The one in red is MBAS, which stands for molecule-based antibody selection. And then in orange, we have also a method which allows us to screen directly against disease cells, which is called CBAS, and which I mentioned, where we have a very broad patent protection. We also have access to different antibody formats, and including multi-specific formats. And also there, I have a comment or one slide at the end showing some more details. So on slide 7, I would like to give you some more details regarding AT-001. So this program actually has the potential for greater safety in comparison to Avastin. And the antibody is a proprietary antibody with a complete novel mechanism of action, which I will show you in the next slide. It's a fully human antibody. Avastin is not fully human, it's humanized. It binds VEGF selectively, saying it inhibits binding to the VEGF receptor 2 only, but not to the VEGF receptor 1, which is very important in the context of safety. And the preclinical data that we have compiled in the IND-enabling package shows efficacy at least equal to Avastin. And we have seen so far no induction of side effects in the animal models that we were running. So we believe that we have there a large market opportunity for that program, especially in the emerging markets. So as I mentioned initially, there's a potential to have a better Avastin. And just for your background information, Avastin had sales of 5.9 billion in 2009. This program, as you might remember, is already partnered with RBC Generium, a Russian pharmaceutical company. And it's very interesting to know in this context that Avastin has a very low penetration in Russia and CIS. And in addition, the focus on an anti-VEGF antibody has actually top priority on the Russian shortlist of innovative drugs to be marketed by 2015. So I think there's a huge opportunity, especially in Russia and CIS. As already promised, so on slide 8, there you see a more mechanistic comparison between Avastin on one side and AT-001 on the other side, starting with Avastin first. So you see the antibody in orange binds to VEGF in a way that VEGF cannot interact with either of its receptors, so VEGF receptor 1 or VEGF receptor 2. And if you then switch to AT-001 RT4, here in blue, it binds to VEGF in a different way, such that VEGF can still interact with the VEGF receptor 1, so this pathway remains completely unharmed, whereas then the only blockage that takes place is the blockage to VEGF receptor 2, which is actually the dominant angiogenic receptor. So that's the main difference. So you could see that AT-001 does a much more specific job than Avastin. A little bit more on status of this program on slide 9. So the GMP manufacturing, and our partner there is Avid Bioservices, has been completed. I mentioned that we're preparing now the clinical trial application for submission, which should be now anytime soon. And also what we did, we, and that has been announced already, we did initiate a collaboration agreement with Dr. Rolf Becken from the University of Texas Southwestern, which is one of the leading groups in anti-angiogenic research dealing with VEGF, to run with him further studies in various disease models in order to explore the potential of R84, AT-001 further. Now I would like to switch gears on slide 10 and tell you a little bit more about our G protein coupled receptors program that we have. And before I do so, I wanted to provide you with some background. So the molecule that you can see, this is a G protein coupled receptor, quite a complicated structure. It's important to know that G protein coupled receptors are the largest known protein family. So actually they represent more than 2% of the entire genome. And that's also why they're involved actually in a wide range of disorders and biological functions. 20% of the current drugs target actually GPCRs, and we believe that there's a major opportunity for an antibody approach. And we use our proprietary CBAS technology such that we can screen our antibody libraries against those molecules in their in vivo situation. On the next slide, 11, I give you a little bit more about the progress and status that we have, specifically for our program AT008, but also in general regarding the other GPCR programs. So CCR4 is a G protein coupled receptor, which is a chemokine receptor. So CCR4 stands for chemokine receptor 4. This target has been clinically validated. So earlier this year, there has been NDA filing in Japan for another anti-CCR4 antibody for the treatment of adult T-cell leukemia lymphoma, ATL. So this NDA has been filed by Kyowa Hakko. And Kyowa Hakko, actually, they have partnered this antibody also in the West with Amgen. So internally, for the antibody that we have generated, we have shown preliminary proof of concept. So we have run an animal model successfully, and based on that also we initiated then the development of an AT008 manufacturing cell line. Besides this program, we have 6 other chemokine receptor programs running, which are currently profiled in various models, in vitro and in vivo. And also, as we have done for the AT001 program, we have also here implemented a collaboration agreement with one of the leading labs in GPCR research, especially actually CCR4 research. And this is the group of Professor Francis Borgwill from the Cancer Research Technology, where we use them, or in collaboration with them, do further validation of the CCR4 target. On slide 12, we have listed the potential indications for antibodies targeting G protein coupled receptors. And there are actually 3 main regions where those antibodies could make an impact. So they are able to hit primary tumors in both hematological cancers as well as solid tumors, because certain GPCRs are expressed in both. GPCRs are also expressed on metastatic lesions, so antibodies recognizing such structures could make an impact there. And then last but not least, it's very important, regular T cells which are in stroma and circulation can be also hit by an antibody approach targeting G protein coupled receptors. So it's a very potent and interesting area. So on slide 13, I would like to end the technical part of my presentation. And I don't want to spend too much time there, but at least give you some background. So we have our own bispecific antibody program, which is called BIMS, and this stands for bispecific IgG-like molecule of enhanced selectivity. And this is actually the next generation of antibodies having dual specificities and dual functionalities. So then you can combine various effects in one molecule. And important to know that our BIMS molecules have the same size as normal antibodies. And another interesting feature is that, since they are tetravalent, so that means they have 4 binding regions, they have also a longer half-life in circulation. So it's a very interesting molecule, and we have started to work on that, and there will be an update coming soon regarding the status of this very interesting program. Then on slide 14, I want to briefly summarize our strategic partnerships that we have in place. So obviously IBC Generium is a very important partner, and there we have partnered AT001 and AT008. IBC provides us with a fast track to market and also of financing of clinical trials in Russia. IBC would also then market in Russia and other CIS countries, but very importantly, we retain the worldwide rights and also the possibility to use the data that we generate in Russia. And that would provide us with the opportunity to leverage into other emerging markets. The Peregrine collaboration we have running since some time. And there we have those two programs that I mentioned initially. But I want to actually highlight our collaboration with Roche. This is the program AT006 targeting angiopoietin 2. And there Roche is using the antibodies that we have provided in their own bispecific format with Avastin. So this is something potentially very hot and interesting. And I mentioned Avid Bioservices. So this is our partner for GMP manufacturing of AT001. Coming to slide 15. So I mentioned already the research collaborations that we have in place. So with the cancer research technology, there we support our CCR4 program, whereas with the University Texas Southwestern, we support our AT001 program. And both projects, or both collaboration, I should say, are running very well. So on slide 16, we have listed the priorities and timelines, the key milestone for this year. So I mentioned to you already that we are finalizing the clinical trial application for AT001. Within the AT008 program, we have our drug and antibody candidate selected, and we are currently completing preclinical testing of various drug candidates in addition. Regarding partnership, we want to enter into more partnerships, potentially in BRIC nations and other emerging markets. And we are continuously working on that, and hopefully we can announce some updates on that soon. And in the technology area, I think where we're really focusing on, and we believe that there will be a huge potential, this is our BEAMS platform, which I already described and explained to you. On slide 17, they're just the listing details. I think this is nothing very exciting. So we have Transnova with 40%, Crosalta with 13%, and then the Norwegian investors with 30%, and then the Danish private investors with 17%. That's the current situation. On slide 18 is the current organization. So we are currently 30 plus. We have 27 scientists, 10 of which are PhDs. Our executive management team consists out of myself and then Stig Jarle Pettersen as a CFO and Alexander Duncan as a CSO, and I think both were present on the last AGM. The facilities, you know where they are. So we have an office in the Bioscience Park in Copenhagen, and the research laboratories are in Oslo. So that's where I would like to end, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, Martin.
Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Martin. Is there any questions?
Yes, hello. I have a few questions actually. First, is there anything left of the Pharmexa in terms of potential milestones or upsides or maybe liabilities?
No, there's the only thing which is left from the old Pharmexa is the shareholding of Affitech in Expression, which is a spin-off of the production technology in S2 cells. And there Affitech has a shareholding of roughly, I don't recall exactly the number, between 20 and 30%. That's the only remaining part of Pharmexa.
Okay, thank you. Can you elaborate a bit on the partnership discussions or the financing? I think you mentioned that you need to take some kind of decision before the end of the year because the cash is, you're running out of cash in 2012. Do you have any deadline, or when do you expect any news in that area?
So there should be some news at the end of this year, but I cannot promise. The only thing I can say, we have active discussions regarding further funding of the company. We have various possibilities, opportunities that we explore at the moment. Alexander Schuster, the chairman of Affitech, which also represents Transnova, the major shareholders, actually announced on the last AGM that they will continue to support the company. So that's what I can say at the moment. So we are exploring various possibilities and we'll come up with an update pretty soon.
Thank you. Final question. I think at the last presentation you mentioned that you received 7 million euros in milestones this year.
Yes.
And in the summer you received 2.5.
Yes.
When are we going to see the next milestones?
So the only thing I can say, there will be a press release soon.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, good evening. My question is, do you have a commitment from your Russian partner? I forgot the name of the company, but do you have a commitment from them if you can show progress that they will go all the way to market with you? And
yes.
and most important, they will finance the clinical studies?
Yes. So the R&D and licensing agreement that we have in place with IBC Generium, and that was signed in April 2010, clearly structures the work. Affitech's part is to deliver a preclinical IND enabling package, which we have done. And then IBC Generium's part is to file for the clinical trial application and then run and start actually this year phase 1 clinical trials and of course phase 2 and phase 3 until the market introduction. And there's a clear commitment, it's clearly regulated in the R&D and licensing agreement that we have signed beginning 2010.
And just probably to repeat yourself, but Affitech then controls the remaining rights to this project outside of Russia?
Yes. So IBC, they only have the rights for, and that they have exclusively for Russia and CIS.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, then I have a couple of questions. How do you see the partner opportunity in your BIMS, your dual body technology? There's more and more technologies evolving around dual body technology. So how do you see yourself in that space?
I think the opportunities there are very, very good, actually. As you could see, so there are a number of companies going into this field, and this is actually a new approach, which is very promising. Even big pharmaceutical companies as Roche are doing that. So where we are with our platform, so we have unique IP, so we have the technology is patented and covered, and we're running at the moment in vitro and in vivo proof of concept studies regarding various constructs that we have made. So I think, and of course we have to wait then the data coming out of that, but I think we are in a pretty good position to really compete in this area of bispecific antibodies.
Okay, thank you. Can you perhaps tell a bit about your Russia strategy? Faster development, cheaper development, how come you ended up in Russia, so to speak?
Well, there was an opportunity which came up, so it was not, to be fully honest, it was not a strategic approach from the beginning. So we were approached from the other side. But then what we did, when we got approached, we quickly went over there and then basically explored the whole market, initiated a couple of discussions in parallel. And I think we ended up with the best partner that you can have, because IBC Generium is our direct partner, but it's closely related with Farm Standard, which is the biggest, by far biggest local pharma company in Russia. And so the main, as I see it from my perspective, that's my personal view, the main advantage really is to come quicker to the market. Because Russia is going to really invest a lot of money, also money from the government into pharma innovation. And there was the agenda which was put in place, Agenda 2020, which was put in place by Putin. which clearly lists, and I mentioned it also in my presentation at some time point, a number of interesting products that they would like to introduce into the Russian market as quickly as possible. And on number 2 actually of this list, listing roughly 40 to 50 different products, they have listed an anti-VEGF antibody. And we have the chance actually that AT-001 will be this antibody. Of course, dependent on the clinical data that we generate now together with our Russian partner.
Oh, thanks. Just a final question. How is the Russian pricing for the end medicines?
You mean specifically for this or in general?
In general.
In general. So they are actually at the moment implementing a health reform, because so far what they did is that they don't have any insurances. I mean, as we're used to it in Scandinavia and most of the parts in Europe, they're implementing that now. And they're very much aware that they have to have prices which then can be covered, by their insurances or by the people in case, they have to co-pay or pay together with the insurance a certain amount for a drug. So this is still under development. But to say it more specific, so what we have discussed so far with them regarding the antibody that we are developing together with them, and of course this is nothing final, this is just initial discussions, but based on some calculations that were made, this will be definitely very price competitive compared to Avastin.
Yeah, I have a couple of hardball investor perspective questions, and I would like to have your opinion on a couple of things. First of all, maybe from an investor point of view, one could be a little bit baffled over that we're not seeing more of mergers and acquisitions from big pharma coming into Danish biotech when it's historically cheap. So what is your overall feeling? Is there more activity towards merger acquisitions? Are you seeing more interest from big pharma?
So I think there will be, and it's always in waves, as you can see, and there was also just recently a number of interesting acquisitions. Unfortunately, not in Denmark, but if you think about the acquisition of Nucomed by Takeda, which is a pretty big one. So I think there will be acquisitions, and I think the driver for that is always twofold. One is that you have a unique platform that can be used to, generate and fill portfolios, but also one needs interesting antibodies already, or compounds, not only antibodies of course, but compounds which are maybe in later stage of development. I think this is always, if you have this and can offer this, then I think this company is always a prime target for an acquisition or a merger and acquisition. And looking at Danish companies, so for instance, Genmab, but also I think Symphogen probably at some time point. And these are the companies that I'm looking more at because I'm coming from the antibody space. Once they move further into their regarding their development, and Genmab of course went already quite a way. So there one could ask oneself, okay, why not, or why it did not happen yet. But one never knows. So I think those are definitely interesting companies which could be acquisition targets at some time point.
Thank you for that.
In my view.
Okay, great view in my opinion. I had a follow-up question. Is there what can you, from your perspective again, is there a recognition in the industry that there might be not that much money to raise over the stock exchange anymore, that the business is changing that way, and you have to do with the finance that you have at the moment?
Yes, definitely. So I think everybody realizes that at the moment. It's quite interesting if you look, in a broader perspective, not only looking at listed companies, but also classically VC-backed companies. There, what I see, and it's also just a private observation, that the companies backed by VCs, which are associated with pharma companies, they're doing actually quite well. And companies backed by VCs having really a long-standing and let's say a good knowledge in the area, they're also doing quite well, because those companies and their investors basically know what it will take to develop therapeutics. There's a huge risk, and it costs a lot of money and takes a lot of time. And those who have planned accordingly, they are standing there as the best at the moment. That's for sure. So there will be probably at some time point a number of what shall I say, acquisition targets, and I think the price will probably even come further down. That's why maybe there is not that much acquisition and M&A activities at the moment, because I think it probably will still go down a bit.
Thank you. And a final question. How do you see the, again, generally speaking, the fact that that most Western states perhaps are spending or want to spend less on public healthcare, and two, there is discussion about the patent period to shorten that to get generic competitions faster to the market. Does that has like a trickle-down effect on the valuation of biotech companies, do you think?
Well, it depends. I think if you have, as a general speaking, as a biotech company, really a very promising drug candidate in your pipeline, and you can show good data, I think then, and also showing really a definite impact on life expectancy and quality of life, I think then still you will get a lot of money for that. I'm pretty sure. But obviously there is a development that, and accordingly you will be evaluated. But obviously there is a development, and also now seeing it from a different perspective, as a potential patient. Drugs in nowadays are very, very, very expensive. And I think the whole industry has to think about how this could be done in a more efficient and more intelligent and cheaper way, definitely. And I think this also there will be a push on the industry that they come up with smarter ways of developing drugs. One thing, of course, which has to go with that in hand in hand is, of course, that also then the process of dealing with the regulatories, IND filing and everything, that also has to be much, much, much more streamlined. Because if I see there, and Affitech is now transitioning from preclinical to clinical, this is so much work, and there's so much redundant stuff that you have to do, which costs a lot of resources, which at the end is time and money. So these processes also have to be streamlined and changed in order to then come up with a result, which is then being in a position that you can provide cheaper medicines, because they are too expensive nowadays, from a patient perspective. So I'm not talking now from a company perspective, but from a patient perspective.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Martin, I think that was the last question. So we appreciate you taking time to participate today.
Thank you very much. Yes, I think it worked, at least from my perspective, excellent. So I didn't have any echoes, and I could hear everything, and I hope that the quality on the other side was the same.
It was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Så er det administrerende direktør Lars Komstock fra